let's get right into the thing that I think we all agree on is one of the coolest parts of this movie, the inclusion of Spider-Man.
Yes, so great. The further they got into the movie, I was like, we haven't seen Spider-Man yet. We haven't seen it. You were mentioning just when it cuts to the Queen's thing, it's like, oh,
it's like hitting Joshua. We were watching it together. I was like, it's happening.
Yeah. And he's just perfect. Like, it's just, it's a small role, but it's also a substantial yet small role because he makes an impact in, probably the 15 minutes or so that he's on the movie, maybe less than that. But no, it was, we've seen a lot of Spider-Man in the movies, but I thought this was a great, great depiction. It makes me really excited to see his own movie. And just to know that he is being done by Marvel Studios now, or at least in cooperation with Marvel Studios for a solo movie, you just feel like, oh yeah, this is working really well.
Yeah, the movie took this sort of weird detour to include him, because Tony goes and meets him, and he's like, hey, you want to come to Germany? But everything we got was so good, right? Even just like his sense of humor, like he's very soft-spoken, kind of naive, but very endearing.
Yeah.
And I liked how it kind of really quickly established, just he had been Spider-Man for, like, I think they said 6 months, and he built the web shooters, and then as a scientist, like, Tony Stark was very interested in that part of him, how he designed this, and in his abilities. And speaking of his abilities, I love, like, during the fight, he was the strongest one there. Well, probably not strongest vision, but he said didn't seem to know it. He was just happy to be there.
Yeah.
He's like, what was it? Winter Soldier punched him and he grabs his arm and he's like, oh, this is awesome. Like, cool, he's a metal arm. As he's like bending it back with this immense strength, and just to see him do like his webbing and stuff, like all over the place, and take to the sky, and like crawling on Giant Man's lens. Just all these things were like so awesome that I'm so glad we finally got to see.
That was something that really struck me. He's by far the youngest of the Avengers, especially the ones who are in this movie, but you didn't feel that. Like, everything worked so well. The writing incorporated him into the storyline so well. And also, I think he and Ant-Man are like the two characters who are geeking out the most for being called to be a part of it. Black Panther, a little more subdued, not quite as happy, a bit more serious about his inclusion. But definitely, I thought the Spider-Man element just gave so much more levity to the movie, and something it really needed. I am curious how different Spider-Man Homecoming is going to be after this. Like, obviously it's established this relationship between Tony Stark and Peter Parker, and we can see this sort of mentor-mentee relationship. But, given that he is a fairly young teenager, are we going to see a tone shift? Do you guys want to see a tone shift?
Well, I think they already open up that door. As you said, I mean, this is, relatively speaking, it's, a more sort of grim movie than a lot of the other Marvel movies. And Spider-Man is one of the ways that they put humor into it. So I think you'll definitely see that. I mean, they got his wit in the midst of battle, which I thought was great. And also, I thought it was really smart and, shows sort of like Marvel knows what they're doing, that they got out of the way all of the hot Aunt May jokes that we've all been, like, everyone's made for like a year now since Marissa Tomei was cast. It's like, no, have Tony say that, have him kind of being hitting on her. I thought that was great. It's like, every joke that people were making on the internet, Tony Stark would make, and he does make in this movie.
I don't know, that's not my Aunt May. I don't like hot Aunt May. She needs to be an older, like, elderly woman, because that's what makes her, that's like her character, I thought. Yeah. When it's the younger character, like, you don't really need to, like, take care of and watch out for a woman who's, like, in her prime, I
just feel like we probably shouldn't go too far down the Spider-Man web. But I think that because there's been so many movie Spider-Mans in the past decade plus, they really want to make things that are very distinctly, different about this depiction. And I think, although I did see someone on Twitter make a great joke about Aunt May's been Benjamin Buttoning, showing like the three, but it is by having her be like, much younger than sort of traditional, and certainly in the Sam Raimi movies, it like just helps. I think they very distinctly want to have things that make it a separate type of story than what we've seen before.
And I think it's interesting that the two post-credit scenes that they have really lean into the characters that I think everyone could sort of predict people were going to be most excited about. You have the Black Panther Wakanda set up for what's to come. Is Winter Soldier going to be involved in any of that going forward? Very interesting. But also Spider-Man, like the movie ends with Spider-Man will return. I think that everyone involved knew, especially once they started getting feedback from critics, we nailed this character. He's been done maybe the best that he's been done before. I don't know. We can debate about it.
Yeah.
We're doing a Spider-Man movie ranking coming up soon. But yeah, I think that they know that they should lean into that, and we're getting a Spider-Man movie next year.
And
Yeah.
it was kind of weird how
Iron Man.
one of Winter Soldier's code words, his activation words, was homecoming.
Right.
I have an answer to this.
Oh, you
I have
do?
an answer to this. Okay, so I talked to the writers behind the movie, Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, and I said, should I be reading into this? Should we all be reading into this? And they said, just coincidence, nothing more to the Homecoming Winter Soldier activation references to the Homecoming title. I know. But then they started joking that like all future Marvel subtitles will just be like Winter Soldier code words going forward.